Hello there, lovely people. It's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and today it is finally time for us to review Grid Autosport, or GRID Autosport, I really don't know, for the Nintendo Switch. And this review was originally written by the ever-wonderful Chris Scullion and has been adapted for video by me. But anyway, that's more than enough waffling, let's dive right into things. The Switch may have a bigger library than the one at the start of Ghostbusters by now, but it's still lacking in one area where many other Nintendo consoles have also suffered in the past. It doesn't have a quote-unquote serious racing game that's truly worth recommending. The Gear Club Unlimited games leave something to be desired in the whole handling side of things, and V-Rally 4 has countless issues, meaning Switch fans craving some proper racing action have been left wanting for something truly great. Until now. Originally released in the summer of 2014, it's fair to say that Grid Autosport went under a number of gamers' radars, mainly because it only launched on the Xbox 360 and the PS3, even though the Xbox One and PS4 had already been out for 8 blooming months. It's a shame because it was actually one of Codemasters' better racing games, doing away with a lot of the nonsense, the convoluted career mode stories, the obnoxious style-heavy menus that have become an unwelcome staple of the studio's racing output over the years, and instead just focusing on the racing. With this Switch port, Grid Autosport gets a second chance to make a first impression, and it's a strong one. There's a lot of racing for your money here, and it's varied too. Indeed, this variety is the central focus of the game. Rather than shoehorning in a bunch of different race types and forcing you to play through them all, even if you may not like them, Grid's career mode is split into a bunch of much smaller seasons and lets you choose which of its 5 disciplines you want to take on each time you start a new one. These 5 styles of racing each have their own unique personality, and you're under no obligation to work your way through them all if that's what you wish to do. If you want to, you can focus purely on the glory that is the touring circuit with its heavily modified road cars, or if you rather, you can opt for the quicker but more dangerous thrill you get in the open wheel division. The choice is yours. More interested in street racing, endurance races, or the tuner division with its variety of drift and time attack events? You can put all your attention into any one of those instead. You can literally put all of your racing eggs in one basket. As you progress through each discipline, you'll unlock a wider range of more powerful cars, and if you do well enough in all 5 disciplines, you'll eventually unlock the overarching Grid discipline, which takes all 5 into account all at once, all at the same time, simultaneously. But again, there's no obligation to do this. If you were a big fan of Codemasters' Toka touring car series back in the day, and you just want a spiritual successor to those games, you're more than welcome to get stuck into the touring category and pretend that the others don't exist. It's a refreshing level of choice in a genre that often leads you by the arm going, okay, now here's a time trial, now here's a drift race, now here's an elimination race, now here's... you get the idea. Of course, this is all well and good, but a game cannot succeed on variety alone. After all, if someone simply kicked you in 5 different sensitive areas on your body, it's not like you'd be there appreciating the variety at the very least, is it? Naturally then, the game's performance on the track is always more important than anything else, and so we're thankful that it's all positive here too. Handling is solid, there are plenty of camera angles to choose from, including a pair of in-car views. AI opponents feel realistic enough to the point that they even make some unforced mistakes from time to time, just like real racers would on a real track in the real world. And there are a wealth of aids and assists available to anyone new to realistic racing games. Or if you're just rubbish at them like me. The default controls will be completely accessible to most players, though you may want to turn off some of the more extreme aids like steering assist to make sure you aren't fighting against the game when you just want to go around the damn corner. Other players, however, may turn their nose up at the fact that the buttons for the pedals are digital. You accelerate with ZR and brake with ZL, which does remove some of the nuance and can occasionally lead to some spinning if you don't have ABS turned on. Codemasters has tried to implement some solutions. There's an alternative control scheme that uses the right analog stick for accelerating and braking. The higher up or down you move it, the harder you push each pedal, and there's even support for Gamecube controllers with their spicy analog triggers, as long as you have the appropriate controller adapter. They've also added the option to play the game with motion controls, where you turn your controller or the entire Switch in handheld mode as if it were a wheel. Don't do this, it's rubbish! Impressively, the range of options extends to the actual quality of the game's graphics. In a move seen in very few Switch games, or console games in general really, Grid has 3 different visual optimization modes that affect the game's performance and can be switched between on the fly simply by pausing during a race and changing them over. There's graphics mode, which turns on all the visual bells and whistles and runs at a fairly stable 30 frames a second. This is the default option, and it's easy to see why, because the game looks its best here, unsurprisingly. There's even the option to download a free high-res texture pack for the cars to make it look even better, but this wasn't available at the time of recording, which makes me a sad bunny. If you're more of a frame rate aficionado, there's also performance mode, which turns off some of the more processor-intensive effects and aims for 60 frames a second instead. Commendably, it manages to hit that 60 frames a vast majority of the time, only dipping during more action-packed scenes, and even then, it's few and far between. Finally, if you're playing on handheld mode and you favor your battery life over anything else, there's Energy Saver mode. This reduces the visual quality a tad further and drops the frame rate back down to 30 frames a second, but it's still perfectly playable and should last you a good deal longer if you're on the go. All in all then, Grid is an impressive game that will finally answer the prayers of those craving some serious racing goodness. There's only one issue, but it is a major one. It's single player only. There's no online racing, there's no local split screen, there aren't even any online leaderboards to encourage you to work towards your time trial results. Given that the last gen version did have both online and split screen racing, this is a real letdown. That said, when you consider that it also includes all the previously released DLC, which still comes to around about £30 to this day on the Xbox Store, then as long as you're a solo gamer, you'll definitely be getting your money's worth here. With over 100 cars and more than 25 different racing venues set over 5 distinct disciplines, as well as bonus DLC ones like Destruction, Derby, and Drag Racing, Grid Autosport is that rarest of beasts, a jack of all trades that doesn't sacrifice quality as a result. The addition of all previously released paid DLC, right down to the cynical XP boost, is extremely welcome, but the complete removal of all local and online multiplayer features means that this is a strictly solo affair, and that may be a turn-off for many. That being said, it still doesn't change the fact that this is easily one of the best racing games on the Nintendo Switch. It's time for my personal thoughts, because I have some. Not many this time, however. Generally, the review pretty much nailed everything on the head. The only thing I would say is that I must admit, I didn't actually notice the lack of multiplayer until it came to record this, because admittedly, you know, I was just playing it just to get an idea of the game, and I didn't even think about multiplayer, but that really is... That's a big deal, really. I mean... No multiplayer in a racing game, it does seem like a strange idea. But then I thought about it, and at least for me personally, and from my own personal point of view, I never really played these sort of simulation games online at all. I don't know whether it's just because I was never very good at them, and I really am not very good at these simulation games. But I do still really enjoy them, and, you know, yes, I go spinning off the track 9 times out of 10 unless I have, you know, a load of assists on. But you know what, it's just fun. It's just fun to be able to sort of take, you know, driving a car, something that I do, well, relatively often, at least. I nearly said every day, but that really isn't true. To take that and put it in a context where you can just do what you like and try and work out which are the gear shift buttons, because I've got to go manual. There's just something ever enticing about it, and I don't think I've ever sat down with one of these games for hours and hours at a time and, you know, really sunk some time in, but to just, you know, dip in and out, just to load it up and play for half an hour, something like that. It's absolutely tip-top, and honestly, it's just a great racing simulation game. There will be a lot of people for which it's not their cup of tea because it's too, I suppose, real to life, and people like something a little bit more sort of card-like, and that's fine. There's loads of games like that on the Switch. But in terms of, you know, actually getting a simulation game, I must admit, I'm really impressed with this, and yeah, I'm going to keep this on, and I'm going to be dipping in and out of it for probably years to come. It's a good, I like.